very, very important role for kidneys beside the respiratory system, which we will speak later about the respiratory system in next lectures, and the renal system. The kidney, of course, the renal tubular cells in specific, the renal tubular cells, specifically the renal intercalated type A cells, renal tubular cells can always generate new bicarbonate by this reaction. CO2 plus H2O, it will yield or result in H2CO3, and H2CO3 will be dissociated into H ion and bicarbonate. This H ion will be excreted to the lumen. It is either excreted for the H ion by hydrogen pump, specific pump, or in exchange with potassium, for example, or in exchange with sodium. So now H ion is excreted, and we can see here the NaHCO3 when we have spoken about the buffer systems. So now sodium will be exchanged with the hydrogen ion, which is released by dissociation of carbonic acid. You can see here that CO2 is bind with H2O to yield H2CO3. H2CO3 is unstable acid, can be dissociated into HCO3, which is the bicarbonate, and H ion. H ion will be secreted to the lumen, and this H ion can bind with this bicarbonate to yield H2CO3, which will be dissociated into H2O plus CO2. CO2 will be reabsorbed or diffused inside the cell to regenerate the cycle, of forming new bicarbonate. This bicarbonate will be either exchanged with what? With the chloride. Exchanged with the chloride, or HCO3 can also transport it to the peritubular capillaries in co-transport with sodium. So let's say, or let's explain that again. Inside the renal tubular cell, HCO3 or bicarbonate can usually and always be generated by what? By exploiting the reaction between CO2 and H2O. Of course, by the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. And this will yield or result in formation of carbonic acid, H2CO3, which will be dissociated into H ion and bicarbonate. Bicarbonate will be transported to the peritubular capillaries either in combination with sodium bicarbonate sodium cotransport, or in as antiport with chloride, exchange with chloride. So what about the hydrogen? Hydrogen ion will be secreted to the lumen in exchange for sodium, and this hydrogen ion will combine with the bicarbonate in the filtrate to yield or to result in H2CO3, which will dissociate into H2O that will be excreted with urine, and CO2, which will diffuse to the inside of the renal tubular cell and can be used again to generate a new bicarbonate. One important thing which we have to speak about also is the compensation or renal compensation mechanism. Sometimes there will be a case which is called in the body the metabolic acidosis. So when there is excessive metabolism of oxidation of fatty acid, excessive metabolism of protein hydrolysis, there will be acidosis. That means the pH of the blood decrease below the level of what? 7.35. So how can the kidney respond? In case of acidosis, the renal tubular cells type A will respond. In case of acidosis, type A renal tubular cells will respond. How is that? We can see in case of acidosis, when the pH drops or decreases below the level of 7.35, the renal tubular cells type A will respond by generating HCO3, which will be reabsorbed to the peritubular capillaries or transported, by antiport with chloride, as you see here. And the H ion will be excreted. Of course, H ion either is pumped by proton pump or in exchange with, for example, potassium. In exchange with potassium. This in case of metabolic acidosis. But what about the case of metabolic alkalosis? Sometimes, for example, in case of recurrent severe vomiting, you know that in case of vomiting, and specifically if it is recurrent and severe, the patient will lose more acid, more H ion, in other words, throughout the vomit, So here, the pH of the blood or the extracellular fluid will increase above the level of 7.45. So the renal tubular cells type B will respond in case of alkalosis. So in case of alkalosis, now the bicarbonate will be excreted to the lumen in exchange, of course, with what? In exchange with chloride. Here. And HAON will be transported to the peritubular capillaries in an attempt to elevate or increase the concentration of HAON in the blood. And HAON will be transported here by hydrogen pump or also as exchange with potassium. Hydrogen potassium exchanger, and now hydrogen ions will be transported to the peritubular capillaries to maintain the decrease in hydrogen ions concentration within the blood. That's all for acid-base balance relating to the kidney function and the role of the buffer system. Thank you so much for your listening.